Christian education, environmental ethics, African philosophy, religion, and media. He serves on the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research Institutional Review Board, and is a member of the African Association for Pastoral Studies and Counseling. He's also a member of the Alliance for Christian Advocacy Africa and Management and Business Consultant Africa. That's MBC Africa. He's an ordained minister of the gospel in the Presbyterian Church of Ghana. He is the immediate past clerk of the Ghana West Presbytery of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana. And I was told a lot of members of the Presbyterian Church will be here. Are there any Presbyterians in the house? Hey, Presbyterian, wow, that's nice. Welcome, welcome. So today we would hear from our main speaker. He is married to Mrs. Fiona Entry, an administrator at FDA, and they are blessed with 4 young adult children. Young adult children. Wow. Wow, that's really interesting. He has published some articles in some refereed journals, sorry. And when you come to Asempa, I am his boss. I'm his boss, but he's a big man. He's the host of Asempamre on Asempa 94.7 FM on Sundays from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Joseph Kofi Entry with a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much, my boss. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I thank the organizers for this invitation. I do not take this opportunity for granted at all. Let me be quick to say that I am not an expert in governance, nor am I a repository of knowledge regarding the topic under discussion, but I have attempted it from my own understanding and what society expects. Therefore, I will plead with you to journey with me as I try to elucidate the topic in the way I understand it. Transformed individuals transforming the world, a challenge to the religious community in Ghana. And I will do this as a young minister of the gospel in the Presbyterian Church of Ghana, with the Bible as my main reference material. The views expressed in this paper are purely my research. Technology. The views expressed in this paper are all my research. Let me first appreciate God for this great opportunity and favor He has granted me. I am most grateful to God for this unique opportunity. I am also grateful to my parents, Openi Kwabena Entry and Elizabeth Amachuneboa Entry of blessed memory. And of course, my family, Fiona, my wife, and the children have already been mentioned. I'm also grateful to the moderator and clerk of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana for allowing me to do this. Then my academic mentors, the Reverend Professor Emmanuel Kwekwa-Sante and Reverend Dr. Kwabena Opuni Frempong. I could not have come this far without you. Thank you very much. In this presentation, ladies and gentlemen, I will be focusing on the moral deterioration and the rise in Inyamesum. I will also consider the ethical basis of character formation, some religious perspective on character formation, and what I call kakistocracy. Then I'll look at the urgent call for national transformation, the role of religious institutions, the way forward. Then I will conclude. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been observed that liberal democratic principles take both tangible and intangible forms. While tangible forms are clearly stated in the national constitution, the intangible forms emanate from practices and societal attitudes. It has been argued that these intangible forms, which by and large touch on moral principles and values, can operate to undermine the goals that the tangible forms are intended to achieve. Some of these intangible forms at the personal level are lack of respect for individuals, for ethnic groups and communities, discriminatory tendencies, partiality, lack of moral decency, mistrust, lack of integrity, and corruption. At the institutional level, these are lack of equity in the distribution of national resources, nepotism, partiality in the exercise of official discretion, including enforcement of the rule of law, and undue favoritism of one group over the other. All these intangibles, which are essentially categories of morality and also form the soft tissue of the practice of constitutionalism, on a daily basis have the propensity to dent our democratic gains, as well as social transformation. Conceptually, all these intangibles are properly defined within the scope of religion and culture. Religious institutions are therefore best placed to reinforce the values defined in these intangibles in strengthening our democratic governance. In Ghana, for example, religion is an important social factor when it comes to discussions on the transformation of societies, and its indispensable role cannot be disputed. However, let me be quick to remark that at different points in history, religion has been harmful, and that through its violent conflicts have occurred in many places. Nevertheless, one cannot deny or contest the fact that religion has also contributed to the development of societies. The importance of religion in Ghana is best established by the demographic statistics from the most recent population and housing census held in 2021, which clearly show that Christians form 71.3% of the population, Muslims form 19.9%, African traditional believers are 3.2%, and 6% belong to other religious groups, or have no religions at all. So in total, 94.4% of Ghanaians claim adherence to one religion or the other. All these religious traditions have contributed and are still contributing to the country's socioeconomic development. The place of religion, therefore, in the daily life of the individual Ghanaian cannot be underestimated. Notwithstanding this, it appears that the religiosity of the Ghanaian is only found in the church, mosque, or shrine. There seems to be an apparent disconnection between faith and practice. Thus, a glaring difference between orthodoxy and orthopraxis in our contemporary times. With this strong presence and the socio-ethical orientation of these three major religions, the country is well placed to benefit from the ethical nurturing of individuals in the society. Albeit, leaders in the various positions across the length and breadth of the society, in one way or the other, belong to one of these religious persuasions. From this background, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to address the 94% of the Ghanaian population, from which the majority are Christians, forming 71%, although I will be citing examples from the two religious faiths, be it Islamic and traditional. So then, what is the problem? Ladies and gentlemen, despite the popularity of religion in the Ghanaian setting, reports of moral decline have increased. Opinion leaders, including some religious leaders, continue to bemoan the decline of the moral fiber of society. This increase in the fall in moral standard has been explored by some scholars in recent times. The subject has even been given prominence as a result of media reports of increased corruption, nepotism, violence, armed robbery, dishonesty, indiscipline, greed, exploitation, the degradation of our natural environment through galamsey. These social vices are all increasing daily from bad to worse, unfortunately. According to Kojo Pumpuni Asante, these have become very prevalent and pervasive to the extent that some people have accepted it as a way of life. Opinion leaders do not only agree that it should be nipped in the bud, but they encourage that a conscious effort is made to change attitudes. In a recent address to open the 2023 World Convention of Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International in Accra in July 2023, the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, pleaded with religious leaders, especially Christian businessmen and women, to imbibe in their business dealings morality, honesty, and truthfulness to further push the fight against corruption. he acknowledged in his address that it was not only the front page reporting of abuse of positions and offices involving people in government and other prominent personalities that draw back society and store growth, but also the flouting of rules and regulations in all aspects of human endeavor and bypassing the laid down guidelines that are meant to safeguard and direct the society. One can say without any equivocation that Christians, unfortunately, have become part of the problem. The onus is on every individual Christian who has been transformed by the word of God to also ensure that these issues are reduced to the barest minimum or nipped in the bud. Speaking at the 23rd General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana in 2023, Yaw Osamfo Mafo, the senior presidential advisor, probed the quality of moral nurturing being carried out by the various nurturing institutions and its impact on the nation's development. He argued that for a country of more than 71% professing to be Christians, the impact of Christianity should have been felt. Unfortunately, this is not the case in Ghana. This paper does not have the intention of re-echoing previous debates on the causes of the moral crisis in Ghana, but to ascertain the role of religious institutions, especially the church, in character nurturing and transforming societies. At the last public lecture in June, Akosua Bame emphasized the need for a citizens' mindset revolution. The question is, how do we accomplish this at the individual or personal level? To bring about the needed mindset revolution in the Ghanaian society, I argue in this paper that religious followers in all areas of society should be nurtured to live and work according to their religious ethics. Thus, there should be a link between action and faith. This could only be achieved through character formation, which, in my candid opinion, is a prerequisite for the citizens' mindset revolution as proposed by our sister Akosua Bame. My thesis is that when the character of our followers is well nurtured, they will become responsible citizens who will transform their societies amid societal decay. Moral degradation and the rise in Nyamesom in Ghana. The degradation of moral values in the Ghanaian society in the midst of increased religiosity gives credence to the fact that the various religious nurturing institutions have not been able to shape the moral character of their members. Their nurturing activities have either been insufficient, ineffective, shifted, or degraded. Some commentators have even accused the church, for instance, of indirectly contributing to the rise of corruption in Ghana. This raises some fundamental questions. One, if Ghana indeed has a Christian population of 71%, then where is the corruption coming from? Is religion making an impact in Ghana? Are religious adherents not demonstrating their faith in the society? Moral uprightness has not complemented the spiritual, moral, social, and environmental witness of these religious institutions. Certainly, the responsibility of the church as the light of the world and the salt of the earth becomes doubtful amid an ever-increasing rate of social vices that have bedeviled this nation. Kweku Chumba, in his article, Large Christian Population Has Little Impact on Development, published on Ghana Web Portal in the year 2005, 16 February to be precise, contends that based on the number of churches, mosques, and shrines in the country, coupled with the size of the Ghanaian population, it was expected that corruption, moral decadence, and its related negative vices would be reduced to the barest minimum. But the situation, sadly, is different. As the moral conscience of society, the church in Ghana, for instance, is expected to play its role in building the society through character formation, amongst others. Unfortunately, the reverse is the case. It is very difficult these days to determine the difference between a Christian and a non-believer, since they both share and exhibit the same worldly lifestyles and common standards in their respective environment. The ethical basis of character formation. Beloved ladies and gentlemen, any effort aimed at salvaging the alarming erosion of the moral standard in the Ghanaian society requires a clear understanding of the human character. Character, subain in akan, jemba in ga, enonome in ewe, is the moral dimension of a person. It is that which inspires humans to act. Everything done in life is driven by character. When subain is properly cultivated and nurtured, it leads to a virtuous life. A person who exhibits such a virtuous lifestyle is said to have a good moral character. Like in the Bible, the boy Samuel lived in a corrupt family, as indicated in 1 Samuel chapter 3. Yet, he did not allow himself to be corrupted. He had a good character. The various religious and nurturing institutions in Ghana must help their members to live as such, even amid societal decay, and not to be corrupted. The church's Great Commission, Matthew chapter 28, should not only be to evangelize at home and abroad, but it must be a life transformative activity just because people have encountered Christ. Thus, turning out mature disciples through baptism and teaching. Unfortunately, it seems many of the churches in Ghana have been focusing on preaching on prosperity, wealth, and now akwankyerɛ, instead of focusing on making faithful disciples through character formation. It has been argued somewhere that the commercialization of the gospel has overtaken salvation messages. These cash and carry pastors, freelance preachers, pastors for hire, emergency pastors, hungry pastors, and so on, have given the church a bad name. They live flamboyant lifestyles that politicians, financed by their church members, who are government workers, market women, unemployed youth, etc. It is time to change the narrative. The question to ask, what is the relevance of our faith if it does not help in transforming our society? Our faith should not only be about private conversion or personal salvation, but it must influence the entire society. It has been said that there are many things that money just cannot buy, like morals, respect, character, common sense, responsibility, good name, integrity, etc. In other words, if we claim to be a civilized nation, the basic value of our worth of our society should not be about money or fame, but values. Our moral values should be the building block upon which our society is built. It has been stated somewhere that the level of morality of a society has a direct link with the development of their society. So if we are not developing as a country, it means there is something wrong with our values. One will want to agree with Jonathan Sachs when he wrote that there is what we call cultural climate change. That is, we have moved from we to I. We have become a self-centered and self-seeking generation instead of human-centered and generational thinkers. Now let's consider some religious perspective on character formation. First, I want to consider indigenous African religious-cultural perspective. In African indigenous understanding, good behavior is highly regarded in every home or community. In his book, Christianity and African Traditional Beliefs, Nana Addo Dankwa III maintains that Africans are value-minded people. Therefore, a person who exhibits great value is preferable. The Ghanaian philosopher Kwame Gyekye observes that values are the patterns or principles of conduct that are considered most worthwhile and cherished by a society. Emmanuel Kwekwa Asante also observes that community is possible where the members share common ethical and moral values and ideals and act in ways that promote common good. The philosophical assumption in all these views is that values are considered vital to the well-being of the entire society. On the other hand, anything that brings disgrace to the value of a person, the family, the society in general, is an abomination. Society therefore frowns on anything that brings reproach to the human being. That is why our elders say, "Enimguasie emfata okeniba." This accurately sums up the whole attitude of morality, dignity, and behavior. Simply put, Africans and Ghanaians are people of dignity without disgrace in nature. To prevent enimguasie, some formal and informal activities are lined up for the young ones so that they start their journey towards older and future lives well prepared. An immense value is therefore put on ordered behavior, or brapa, which is character. And by this, a man should prove himself as wapo, polished, and okeni, gentleman-like. That the community therefore expects the individual to perform every activity and come up on top without disgrace or debasement of his or her dignity. Such a person is described as an adult, an openi, a grown-up person, a person of rank, an elder. Ladies and gentlemen, let me pause here and ask, where are the adults in our communities, in our governance system, in the media, in sports, in judiciary, in protecting the environment, in religion, in politics, in chieftaincy institutions, and even in our educational institutions? Recently, we saw a young man holding a machete, hiding a machete in his dress, saying all sorts of things. Where are them penny for in our schools? Ladies and gentlemen, adults are not made. Adults are not born, but made or nurtured. Philosophically, an adult is intentionally made, nurtured, groomed, prepared, or discovered through several nurturing activities. Painfully, social media has come to replace these rich indigenous educational movements that we used to have. Maybe it's time the church integrates some of these indigenous knowledge systems into her nurturing activities. Now let me turn to Islamic perspective. In pure Islamic tradition, developing individuals with character is the core goal of educational philosophy in Islamic society, taking into account the person's intellectual, spiritual, and moral development. This idea is so key in the Islamic faith, which is why the first chapter of the verses, Surah Al-Alaq, verses 1 to 5 of the Holy Quran, center upon acquiring knowledge and forming the character of the young ones. In fact, besides the Quran, the prophets, peace be upon him, tradition, Sunnah, also gives great attention to character formation or nurturing. In the Islamic educational context, the spiritual and moral components are added to develop the individual intellectually, socially, and physically. S. Ryan clarifies that the main objective of education in Islam is to reform and construct human life, that is to build character, and develop a balanced relationship between the individual, the society, and the world based on ethical concepts. According to L. Ali, someone with a character is a person who demonstrates intellectual and behavioral traits that match societal values and beliefs. However, it has been argued that since the advent of Western education into most Muslim countries, Islamic education has been confronted with several crises that are preventing it from achieving its lofty goals. This has pushed some Islamic scholars, ulamas, to call for the need to return, at least within the Muslim Ummah, to an educational system which is deeply entrenched in Islamic values and ethics to overcome the moral degradation and behavioral disorders affecting our society. Now, the Christian perspective. One cannot talk about Christian formation or character formation without going back to the Old Testament. Character formation in the Old Testament was more of a religious category which focused on God. In the Jewish educational setting, God expects fathers to help train their children after the ways of God. Such nurturing activities were to take place at home, on the way, before they go to bed, and when they wake up. Deuteronomy chapter 6. He also instructed them regarding individual and communal virtues for their own good. For their own good. Deuteronomy chapter 6. Such nurturing activities were therefore expected to culminate in the transformation of the entire nation. Good character was thus a prerequisite for their survival as a nation. There were no textbooks except the scriptures. It became the foundation for character formation and social transformation. Failure to adhere to the law meant that the spiritual well-being, societal preservation and transformation, and the moral standard of the entire nation were at stake. Psalm 78, 1 to 11. They accepted that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Proverbs chapter 14. The benefit of this obedience to the principles of God was that they received God's blessing across. Character formation for the Jews did not end with the patriarchs, but continued in the historical books with a different focus on having a national identity in a pluralistic world. After the destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC, the Jewish people who were deported to Babylon were confronted with unfamiliar customs and traditions. For instance, their names were changed. They learned new languages. Their cultural settings were changed. The socio-political environment was different. Nevertheless, the threats from unfamiliar customs, the Jews kept their faith and identity even at the point of death. They asked, how shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? Psalm 137 verse 4. It was a question of identity. Ladies and gentlemen, religious institutions and natural institutions in Ghana should focus on preparing their followers to become faithful disciples, even in the face of persecution and corruption. Let us teach our members to say no, no matter the challenge. In the early church, character formation was more of an identity issue. That is, how to express one's faith or how to stand for the faith in Christ, even in the face of persecution. The early Christians faced diverse opposition from the Jewish leaders and the Roman authorities, yet they kept their faith. As a Christian faith moved out of Palestine into different cultural communities, new cultural questions emerged. Christian nurturing was thus designed to make the Christian faith relevant within a pluralistic environment, as well as keeping one's faith. And the early church did this through fellowship, service, worship, preaching, and teaching. Through these activities, the early Christians were prepared to influence their communities with their newfound faith. Their main objective was to make them faithful disciples of Christ in their communities. The early church ensured that character, attitudes, and moral behavior were cultivated, not to be self-seeking individuals, but to meet the needs of others, especially the less privileged within the society. Our renewed life in Christ must be reflected within the community in which we find ourselves, the school we attend, in the office where we are, in governance, within the chieftaincy institution, at home, and in caring for the natural environment. The church in Ghana must nurture its members to be mature Christians and live as such. Character formation and kakistocracy. The word kakistocracy means a state or society governed by its least suitable or least competent citizens, or by the most corrupt or inept people. Interestingly, these least competent leaders, according to Papa Upuni Frempong, can be found in our homes, churches, schools, wherever human beings are. And we thank God, these people are not in our parliament. Some indicators of kakistocracy in our society are the absence of capable and knowledgeable people in positions of authority, an increased level of corruption, leaders who take advantage of their positions and act in their interests rather than seeking the common good of the people, disrespect for the rule of law, the degradation of values of the society, the deterioration of educational standards, lack of patriotism, making false promises to gain power or popularity, loss of power, public trust in the various institutions, and the negative influence of special interest groups within the society. The list goes on. Ladies and gentlemen, this paper argues that to avoid kakistocracy in our Ghanaian society, the various religious and natural institutions must intentionally nurture their members to be faithful and responsible citizens or disciples, so that they can in turn transform their communities and not become kakis. This cannot be achieved through prayers and akwanchere, but through intentional character formation. As an enemy of the moral consciousness of society, kakistocracy promotes a state of unethical behaviors such as deception, misconduct, and exploitation. Kempe Ronald Hope observed that the rise of kakistocracy in society is as a result of the decline in ethical leadership. Ethical leaders are generational thinkers and responsible leaders. They are transparent in all that they do. They walk the talk, and they are role models in their communities. They do not degrade the natural environment through galamsey, directly or indirectly, but they protect it. Simply put, ethical leaders are not corrupt. Rather, they influence their societies positively. It must be noted that kakistocracy is a time bomb, and it impedes the development of any society. The urgent call for national transformation. It must be stressed that salvation, transformation, or deliverance of the individual is not only a personal issue, but social as well. If we have been transformed, the outcome must be seen in the society. The Apostle Paul made it clear when he told his readers that believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you will be saved, which is a personal issue. You and your household, a social issue. Acts chapter 16, verse 31. Again, for the creation awaits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. Romans chapter 8. Thus, creation, here including our natural environment, our institutions, our governance systems, and maybe our favorite black stars, are all waiting for salvation or deliverance from corruption, galamsey, indiscipline, nepotism, lack of patriotism, and taking care of our pitches. Who will deliver us? This calls for a reorientation of the Christian nurturing programs of our churches to meeting contemporary challenges, so that the over 71% Christians in Ghana can be ennobled to transform their society. These issues ought to be embedded into any Christian nurturing content or curriculum in Ghana, for transformed individuals must be helped to transform their world. For individuals who have been nurtured or transformed will eventually become good and responsible leaders. This, it is hoped, will prevent kakistocracy in our Ghanaian society. And as it has been said, the absence of sound moral transformation produces intelligent criminals. To influence the behavior of the citizenry, our religious and nurturing institutions must go back to the drawing board. The role of religious institutions. As noted earlier, there has been a paradigm shift in the church's task for nurturing members to become mature and faithful disciples to materialism and the giving of akwanchere. This phenomena has greatly contributed to the failure to restore the moral path of our country. It is evident that the content of the messages we preach from our pulpits has changed, and there is therefore the need to do some introspection as a community. In addition to our contemporary spiritual focus, we must also devote more attention to moral qualities such as truthfulness, loyalty, respect, patriotism, courage, self-discipline, service, sacrifice, selflessness, and let us help our members to pay their taxes. All these are part of the things we ought to do. Let us help our members to be like Christ and not kakis. Our religious bodies should not only care about the salvation of the souls of our members, but we must also care about where our members are. What are they doing at where they are? Ransford, Edward Van Jampo, and Bosman Asare have maintained that the church, for example, has a membership that cuts across all associations constituting what we call civil society in Ghana. This implies, ladies and gentlemen, that the church has the divine mandate and responsibility to prepare its members to be faithful legislators, businessmen and women, politicians, doctors and nurses, teachers and lecturers, and of course, students, to be faithful media personnel, patriotic sportsmen and women, respectful youth, and responsible environmentalists. The only game in town for the church is to make faithful disciples for Christ. The church should not only be interested in the numbers that attend their services every week, but equally be interested in how their members are transforming their societies. We should not only focus on going to heaven, of course, that is the aim, but also we should also focus how do we live responsibly here on earth. There must be a healthy balance between faith and action on how to live our faith in the public space, on how to sing the Lord's song in this strange land. What we learn from our pulpits on Sundays must reflect on what we do from Monday to Friday. The way forward, ladies and gentlemen, for the Christian faith to be relevant in the Ghanaian society, character formation is imperative. For when the drum beat changes, we must also change the style of our dance. As representatives of Christ, Christians in Ghana are to let their light shine before all men, so that they may see their good work and give glory to God. Matthew chapter 5. The giving of spiritual direction, akwankyerɛ, is not making our members faithful disciples. Let us use our 31st December, whether it is watch night, crossover, jump over, fly over, leap over services, for a deeper reflection. Let us help our members to deeply reflect, how do I live my Christian life in the years ahead? Such services must not only focus on giving prophecies on who is going to die this year or who will win the general elections. By the way, how can a true God give different revelations as to who will win the forthcoming 7 December general elections? What kind of God is that? It is either God is a liar or those who are giving the prophecies are. Our religious bodies must help our electoral system when it comes to elections from cheating, engaging in political violence, ethnocentrism, monetization, manipulation, hate speech, dictatorship of the majority, and now what we are hearing is diabo. Let us help our members to stop that as far as the upcoming 2024 general election is concerned. Nobody should die because of 2024 election. We should not water our land with human blood. Almost all the flag bearers, fortunately for us, and their parliamentary candidates are all religious, either they are Christians, Muslims, or traditional believers. And we expect them to pledge that this year's election shall be violence-free and peaceful. Likewise, the Electoral Commission is expected to ensure that the elections are free and fair. We do not have any other country but Ghana. We need zero tolerance for violence. In respect of the question of false prophets and their unethical behaviors, which have characterized our religious environment, I suggest that the various religious bodies, like the Christian Council of Ghana, the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference, with other stakeholders, should consider establishing a national religious commission in the form of the National Media Commission to control the emerging bizarre activities within the ministerial landscape. Pedagogically, our educational institutions must include issues of moral lessons in the teaching of science, technology, and mathematics. Our educational system should not be value-free, but value-inclusive. I believe that developing students' character and instilling values in them are as important as the teaching of mathematics, science, engineering, and technology. This will help build their character, and as it has been said, the true goal of every educational system should be intelligence and character. Conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, I have demonstrated in this paper that Christians, for example, by their calling, are to ensure that the spiritual change they experience in Christ, in the church, is also reflected in their daily activities in the marketplace, where they spend the larger part of their active lives. The authentic showroom of our Christian life is not in the church, but in the marketplace, in the family, in the office, on the streets, in governance, in media, in sports, even in parliament. I have also advocated that the content of Christian nurturing in Ghana needs a paradigm shift to address contemporary social issues. Personal salvation must be translated into social transformation, as it curbs the idea of kakistocracy. In the words of Pope Francis, we cannot be and we should not be satisfied with a private faith. In a diverse religio-cultural setting like Ghana, a character can only be formed if religious people in general and Christians in particular form a unique counter-cultural community in which the Christian character is modeled on sound Christian principles with Christ as a foundation. Just like the American civil rights activist, the Baptist minister Martin Luther King Jr., who fought for social justice on account of his religious convictions, we need to dream of a society where people will not be assessed based on their ethnicity, religious affiliations, political party membership, or social responsibility, but by the content of their character and responsibilities. We need to dream of a nation where leaders see themselves as servants of all citizens, and not only of those who are related to them politically, religiously, socially, or economically. We need to dream of a society where meritocracy defines and informs heights and positions, and not kakistocracy. We need to dream of a society where the well-being of individuals are defined and informed by the well-being of all. We need to dream of a society and a nation whose ontology is expressed in terms of the dictum, I live because you live. Ladies and gentlemen, so when you go home and someone asks you, what did you hear? Your response should be, if your religious foundation is weak, your moral character will expose you. Thank you very much.
Oh, you can do it better. You can do it better. That's powerful. That's powerful. That's powerful. I mean, straight to the point. Said some of the most uncomfortable things to say on a platform like this, but that's wonderful. A round of applause for him one more time, please. So my takeout really would be the fact that there is the need to train individuals, and through that some of the challenges we face morally will reduce. Taking moral education to the doorsteps of our religious bodies, and the question of what we are doing wrong as a people and who bears what responsibility, very critical. The legitimate roles of us as citizens as well. We have a role to play in the development conversation of our country. Values, the absence of values, and even more is the problem of defining what our core values are as a people. Very, very, very critical. And I picked also the point about spirituality and religiosity. So we are told we are a very religious country, but are we spiritual? A very important point. Also, the dichotomy between scripture and church teaching. So what we teach in church and what the scripture actually mandates us to do. Very important. And the Great Commission also as a source of responsibility. But I think the biggest takeout really would be, if your religious fundamentals are weak, your moral character will expose you. Charlie, That's powerful. That's powerful. A round of applause again for our main speaker. That's powerful. And the last time we were here, I think we have one or two of our panel members who are present with us here would have to acknowledge their presence. Mr. Abe Kusego is here. A round of applause for him. Mr. Abe Kusego, thank you. And also I see Madame Susan Eduamankwa here. Yeah, you can give us a wave. Thank you. And Reverend KK Sapon. Reverend KK Sapon. Oh, Osofo Akwaba. Yamin. So we thank all of you, and you are also here. So a round of applause for yourself, please. Thank you so much. Without much ado, I would introduce our panelists for this evening. So we zoom straight and chew on some of the very important points our main speaker has raised. And then we move into the segment I've been waiting for, where we do the open forum. But the first panelist I would call is Dr. Philip Engman. Dr. Philip Engman has a PhD from the University of Ghana, again, Ghana's only university, in LXX. But basically, Hebrew and Greek textual criticism of the Hebrew Bible. Charlie. And some of the books he's written, fantastic. I mean, critical analysis of Psalm 8, 5-7. Critical analysis of selected texts of the Hebrew Bible. He's also an external examiner and journal article reviewer to UNISA, that's the University of South Africa. He's an ex-vice president of the Maranatha University College, ex-head of the theology department, Regent University, member of the International Organization for the Study of Septuagint Masoretic Text. Charlie. No, Dr. Engman. Dr. Engman, you're too much. He's the ex-general manager of Vodafone Call Center, founder of the Ghana Internet Service Providers Association, and is currently the head of the Ghana chapter of State 55 Africa, a Pan-Africanist group. With a round of applause, let's welcome Dr. Philip Engman. Doc, please join us up here. Charlie. Doc, you're big man. The profile, the top former, a former also. Wow. Dr. Philip Engman. Doc, thank you. So you can sit here. Yes. Thank you very much. I would introduce our second panelist. He's a retired military imam, who has served the caliphs, and I mean the caliphs of our dear republic, and retired as the chief imam in November 2013. He went on to serve as ambassador to Egypt with concurrent accreditation to Cyprus, Lebanon, and Sudan. This was between 2015 and 2017. He's been back on the mimbar as a visiting imam to several mosques. He remains a strong advocate for interfaith dialogue and is also a family man. Let's welcome Ambassador Umar Sanda Ahmed, a Lieutenant Colonel retired. Oh, you can do it better for him. Ambassador Umar Sanda Ahmed, a Lieutenant Colonel retired. Wow.
That's good.
Charlie, Ambassador. Ambassador, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you so much. I reserved the best for the last, really. Our next speaker, the only female who joined the panelists, is a pharmacist, a pharmacologist, a lawyer, a management consultant, and educator. I'll take that again. She's a pharmacist, a pharmacologist, a lawyer, a management consultant, and an educator. She has experience in leadership, governance, policy, and human resource management. She's been involved in the development of policy and training document, and has led and participated in the drafting and review of constitutions and bylaws of a number of organizations. She's lectured in the areas of pharmacology, toxicology, medical law, and ethics and leadership. She's played a lead role in the management and implementation of several projects. She's been involved in community engagement and education on use, abuse, and misuse of medicines in general, and antimicrobials in particular, and general health and well-being. She has particular interest in medicine safety. But that's where it gets interesting. She is currently the rector of the Ghana College of Pharmacists, where she serves as its chief executive, supervising and coordinating the delivery and the mandate of the college. She is the immediate past vice president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. In that role, she led the drive to extend pharmaceutical services in improving public health and served as the chair of the disciplinary committee of the society. Ladies and gentlemen, if I decide to go through the entire profile, I'm sure I'll be 8 p.m. So I'll cut it simple. But she's a fellow of the Ghana College of Pharmacists, a fellow of the National Safety Council, Ghana, member, Pharmaceutical Society of Ghana. No, Charlie. You can do it better for her. You can do it better for her. Yvonne Yirenchua Eseku. Yvonne Yirenchua Eseku, PhD, MPhil, MGPS, LLB, BL, BFAM. No, Madam Eseku, way too much. Charlie, it's a really powerful panel. So welcome to all of you, and we'll kickstart the conversations. A lot to talk about this evening. I know you are all expectant that we get to that time where you can also contribute to the conversations. So maybe what I'll do is that I'll come to our panelists. Ladies first, so I'll start with you. Your view about what you heard from the main speaker. What do you think? I mean, in some 3 minutes, your initial reactions, Madam Eseku.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I think first of all, I'll say that Reverend hit the nail, maybe a number of nails, right on the head. And he mentioned the role of the nurturing institutions, and so the responsibility of the nurturers. Mm-hmm. But there is something also that he mentioned, the example that he gave of Samuel. Samuel was a child, mm-hmm. and he was in a setting which was corrupt, and yet he was not corrupted. Mm-hmm. And I think in that, he brings out the responsibility of the individual to also grow in spite of perhaps some instances where the nurturing is not as effective as it should be. Yeah. Indeed, I believe that he also talked quite extensively about Paul. Mm-hmm. And there is something that in Acts, the Bible tells us that there was a group of people who were from Berea. Okay. They, we are told, were different in that after they have been taught, they will also go read the scriptures for themselves and see that what has been said is actually in compliance with what has already been documented. And so I think that in that, we find that really looking at our heading, the title of our discussion today, transformed individuals, transforming the world. Yeah. There is a responsibility on each one of us to get the transformation. if you consider the fact that so many of us have religious beliefs, and I believe that for all of these religions that have been mentioned, which make up more than 90% of the population, we all believe that there's a certain standard that we must live by. And if we are not, it is the responsibility of the leaders to teach what the standards are. But if they are not doing that, I believe as individuals, we also have a responsibility to find what it is that we must do.
What the standards are.
What the standards are. And when we find them, we live our lives according to those standards. I believe if we took our time as religious people in Ghana, I mean, more than 95% of us, if more than 95% of us decided to find out what our religions expected of us, and decided to live according to what our religions expected of us, I think we wouldn't be here having this conversation.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
A round of applause for her, please. We are picking initial reactions. Ambassador,
Yes,
it's your turn. Your views on what you heard.
I listened very carefully to my friend, the Presbyterian. Indeed, I have worked with Presbyterians whilst I was serving in the military. You remember Reverend Adutyasare, who is currently. We've been discussing these things at length.
Okay.
But something stands out very clearly, like Doc was saying, responsibility, transformation. What is the end product? I believe when you synthesize all these things, you may have to come to a conclusion that there is a certain element of failure on the part of those of us who claim we are working in the Lord's vineyard. Because how does it happen that we stand at the pulpits and say all the beautiful things, but right down there, the opposite is happening? Kakistocracy, as he said, is taking over meritocracy. So the whole society is moving in a certain direction, and we look on helplessly. For us to restore the value of religion, and then looking at what constitutes universal truths. Universal truth cut across Islam and Christianity. We don't seem to be applying the right resources. And for us as a nation, as Ghanaians, we will need to rediscover what is it that we are lacking. Sense of patriotism, like he mentioned. We don't have it. Then, I remember an Osofo had to come out to ask, where are the wise men? Who are the wise men? We are supposed to be
the wise men.
the salt of the earth.
And the light of the world.
Yes, and we are losing it. So, Doc has done a fantastic job, and I believe as we go forward, a lot more things will come out.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. A round of applause for Ambassador, please. So, Dr. Engman, let's hear from you what your views are on what you heard.
Well, from my perspective, I'm happy that we are centered directly in the text and in the Bible and in the red letters, the words of Jesus Christ. Osofo mentioned the Great Commission on page 8 of his paper. Parothentes un mathetates panta ethne, baptizontes autus ento patos kai tu hiu kai tu hagios neomatus. Didas contes autos terrain panta and a telemen human. Okay, so go ye therefore and teach
that's
all
Hebrew,
nations.
Right?
Yeah, that's Greek. Yeah. Greek. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe. And then, if you are reading the King James Version, you see that the word "teach" occurs twice. It's not very correct, but it's good enough. And the first "teach" is not where the paper was centered, but on the second teaching, verse 20. If you go into the original words, you find that they are actually two different words.
Oh, okay.
So the first teach is matheteosate. Mathete comes to us in English as mathematics, as discipline, as disciple, and so on. So that's the first teach. And then the second teach is didascontes, didact, to didact. A didactor is a teacher.
Okay.
So these are two separate words. And Osofo is saying that the first teach is okay because it has produced 71% of human bodies in churches, whether they are Christians or not. We are saying that they are, you know. But that the morality is not reflecting that 71%. In fact, my late professor said that the more the churches multiply, Professor Krong, he said the more the churches multiply, the more morality decreases. You know, it's an inverse relation. And so there is that second teach is where Osofo is really, and these are two different teaches. The first one is a verb, so teach, and the second one is a verbal. So a verbal is more complicated than a verb. So these are two different concepts. The first one is a verb, the second one is a verbal adjective, an infinite. And in there we find a present tense, a present continuous. Something like a marriage. Marriage is forever and ever. Whether you are happy or you're enjoying life or not, that is it. And then the first teach is, there's an aspect that we call punctilia or aorist, one time, like a wedding. So these are two different concepts. And the focus there is on the second concept. And that's why I say that we are dead center. If Jesus Christ were here, that is exactly what he'd have said.
Wow. That's really interesting. Thank you, Dr. Philip Engman. I hope you followed what he said. You understand him, Charlie. The first teach and the second teach, Charlie. No, Dr. Engman. I love that. So we'll move on and now get into the details. What I find interesting really is, I don't think our issues are that Ghanaians don't find themselves in church buildings or in mosques. Every Sunday, our churches are full to capacity. I mean, some churches do 4 services a day, 5 services a day. On Fridays, you find our brothers and sisters who are Muslims in mosques all over the country. What is the issue? Doc, I would start with you again, Doc Eseku. What do you think is the issue? Is it the message from the pulpit that's not going down well? Or Ghanaians ourselves take this thing as, Charlie, show off. I have to check a box. That Sunday means sorry. So you just go and sit down and come back home. From Monday to Saturday, business as usual. I go back on Sunday. What really do you think is the issue, Doc?
So I think perhaps one of the issues is that I believe there is something that we are always told that, for instance, children copy what their parents or the adults do rather than what they say.
Okay.
And I think it is not just children. It's also between the leaders and the led. So if we actually see our leaders, I'm talking about our religious leaders, living the life that they say we should live, we are more likely to live that life.
Okay.
And there is something that I say, I think one of our challenges, and also mentioned it, is the disconnect between what we profess and what we practice. So we profess a faith. There is a certain practice that the faith that we profess should portray.
Yeah.
But we don't practice our faith. So we say, for instance, as you mentioned, we tick the box that we are going to church.
Yeah.
That when the form is there, Christian, Muslim, then we tick.
Yeah.
And I think there was even a time when there was a discussion that there are some people Christians who go to church twice a year, Christmas and Easter.
Yeah.
But they will tick the box of Christian. And for those people, perhaps they are not getting the message as much as they should, but also perhaps they are not getting sufficient examples. And then they are not getting examples from their leaders, but they are also not getting examples from the rest of us who insist that we go to church or we go to the mosque every week, who are there and listening and hearing and searching the scriptures. We are seeing what our holy scriptures are telling us to do, but we are not living that life. So we are drawn by, it is very easy for us to be tempted by glamour. There's get rich quick scheme, and it is very easy for us to be drawn to that, because we have not been able to imbibe the values of what our faith is supposed to be teaching us. And maybe it is because we are not hearing it enough, but maybe it's also because we are not seeing it, that the life lived, and maybe it's also because we ourselves are not even challenging ourselves to live the life that we must live.
But do we even, as Christians, for example, know the values we talk about? Do we know what the values are?
So if we don't, we should. I think we should. If we don't know, then it is a failure on two angles. One is that of the people, the nurturing institution, that they are not actually taking the time to teach. But the other is that we are also not searching. The way people work hard, try to find ways to make money, is the same way we should be eager about finding ways to live the lives that portray our faith. So if we are so consistent, you are working so hard to make money, you should put in at least a commensurate effort to show your faith. So there are two things. Yes, maybe the nurturers are not nurturing, but we are also not looking for the food that will nurture us, that will nourish our faith and grow our faith. And so there is a dual responsibility on both those who are teaching, who are nurturing, and on us who are following to find. And it is there. I think for all of us, we have written scriptures that we all have access to. And some time ago, when we didn't know the language, that's not the case anymore. Right now, it's easy for us to all access our holy scriptures. We can find them. And then imbibe that. And then live that life, portray it. And if we all, one here, and we all did that, I think we would make progress.
Ambassador, I would come to you when it comes to our brothers and sisters who are Muslims. One obvious fact is that when it comes to following the religious ritual of being a Muslim, they do it to a fault. So, for example, if you have to pray 5 times a day, the average Muslim would do that religiously. I've seen Muslims in airports. Everywhere they get, once it's time for prayer, you would find them praying. You don't find that commitment to that religious ritual with Christians as much as you would find with Muslims. But why is it that the percentage of our population who are Muslims are also not, like we Christians are also not showing the way, living according to the values of the religion? Where do you place the responsibility?
I believe there's always been a disconnect when you get to the ground. When you look at what is said in Surah 109, Surah Al-Asr, time. Allah is swearing by time. And that man is certainly in a state of loss, except those who have faith and preach constancy and patience. One of the leading jurists in Islam, Imam Shafi'i, says that these 3-4 letter words will have been sufficient for the guidance of mankind. Here it is instructive to note that he didn't say, "Oh, you Muslims." He said, "Oh, man." In other words, your observance of the rituals without any meaning, that allows you to empathize with your fellow brother, is hollow. You don't pray 5 times a day when your neighbor, with whom you stay in the same compound house, is hungry and you are overfed. That is not the religion.
Okay.
Indeed, the religion says in a lot of the hadiths that when you are satisfied, find out from your neighbor whether he had food on his table, and then reach out to him.
Wow.
So you might see all the rituals. Yes, we are very consistent. That is part of it. But the other part, which you are asking for, well, I didn't want to be judgmental. You might see the man is a big sheikh. What he does outwardly might not reflect what is done behind. But then if you understand the religion very well, what you say by word, you do it in terms of deeds. There must be a relationship between the faith and the actions.
But as an imam yourself, do you reckon the ordinary Muslim understands this relationship between what you say and what you do? Are they thought? Do they understand it?
They understand. Because for every Muslim to even become a Muslim, knowledge, like Osafo said, is the basis. You need to acquire the knowledge, and in this case, sound knowledge.
Is that the Iqra?
The Iqra was the first revelation sent to the Prophet Muhammad in that cave where he was asked to read. You must have knowledge. Without knowledge, your Islam is hollow. And then when you imbibe the knowledge, your spirituality should be at a certain level. And that allows you to exhibit it in terms of your social interactions and how you relate to other people. Without that, we will always have all these things you see happening as negatives. Meanwhile, we have fundamental truths. Patience, constancy, empathy, etc., etc.
Wow. I'll come to Osofo for the Christian religious perspective. But before that, Dr. Ingman, I'll come back to you. Where do you place the responsibility in all of this?
Well, an analysis is important. A little bit of analysis. Osofo said that he won't go into the reasons for the lack of morality. But sometimes when you can analyze something, you can correct it. So in the Great Commission again, we look at the word nations, ethnos, ethne, from which we get our English word ethnics. When Paul was going around preaching, he went to Galatians, these are people who knew themselves. The identity was secure. Now, the kind of Christianity that came across the waters, it came with 2 C's. 2 C's across the seas. C for Christianity and C for civilize. They came to civilize and to Christianize. Now, that created a situation where the African soul, the African personality was destroyed. Damaged. The African didn't know who he was. Right now, he feels that he's British. What's your national language?
In Ghana?
I'm asking you, your national language.
English.
Okay, so your national language is
Our national and official language is English.
Your national language is somebody else's language. You don't have a national language. You don't. You don't have a soul. You don't have anything. And that is why you must bleach your skin. Mine is okay. Mine is. You see, and that is why you must stretch your hair. You see, because you're not African. When we were in school, there was something they call POD, powder on debt. That
powder on debt.
On debt. Yes, it means that people will not have their bath. We know them now. They are big men. We can't. And they'll put powder. You see, when you put Christianity on a non-African, somebody whose soul is destroyed, nothing happens.
Yeah.
You see, what is going to happen is going to pray for you to go and get a passport and work for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to pray for you to take your money and put it into somebody else's business, British business, European business, Arab business, anybody else's business except the African.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be poor, and then you see a poor person in morality. If I'm rich and I see, if I have $1,000 or say $1 million in the bank, and I see 100 cedis on the ground, I'll say, oh, I'm a good citizen. I give it to the police station. But if I don't have anything in the bank, and I see, you see, so the Africanness was destroyed by the kind of message. The first C, to civilize, I have a problem with it. The second one, to Christianize, we can say that Christ sent them. Yeah. But for the second one, we don't know who sent them. And that second C is what destroyed our culture. That's why Chinua Achebe said it. He said the white man is very clever. He used his religion to put a knife on the things that held us together. And now we are split apart, atomized. The we has become I. And so there's a sense for me in which there must be two repentances. A repentance to find ourselves. And then when we put the Christianity on top, it will make sense. Yeah. But you put Christianity on top of nothingness, you know, you get nothing. And so that's why we see it as a foreign religion. And, okay, give to God on Sundays, the rest. I mean, it's not, we have to find ourselves. Just like when Paul went to the Galatians, Ephesians, the ethnics, they knew who they were. But right now, we have a mixture of someone he doesn't know. He doesn't even know who he is. If he doesn't have a British passport, he doesn't feel okay. I mean, there's something wrong. You see, there's something wrong. Yeah. So that is something.
So having that identity is critical, and then you can then place the religion on top of it. So you own the religion. Right. Now it's as if, okay, it will be some
exactly.
We just tag along it without proper understanding. Osofo, this I think he raises a very interesting point. Very, very interesting point. And you know, it's also a very controversial topic to explore. That yes, this whole business about Christianity, about Islamic religion, these are foreign religions. Unfortunately, because of our adherence to the principles of these religions, we seem to have relegated our traditional African religion to the background. I mean, some have gone as far as even demonizing that religion. Where do you stand? Because also for the Great Commission is to go into the whole world, preach the gospel, and draw people to Christ. And you find a lot of these preachers on crusade platforms demonizing what traditionally is African. How do we go about this?
When you read Revelations, it says that the kings of the earth will enter into heaven with their glory. That text did not mention asophos, bishops, but specifically the kings of the earth, of course, including all those who have been washed by the blood of Jesus. Sure. And that the kings there is not referring to King Charles only, but Mikuro Mudikuro. Ekaho. So it is up to me to reorient my mind to see that if the kings of the earth will enter into heaven with their glory, who are those kings that the Bible is talking about? Is it the foreign kings or the Nime or Ulumo? So it is as he said, yes. And we have taken the thing on the superficial surface as if, yes, these things are demonic, don't go there. But Jesus Christ is the King of all kings. If we understand it that way, we will need to also enter into the palace. Of course, there may be others who will say that these are black things, you don't have to go there. But in the Church of Pentecost, similar to the Church of Presbyterian and Presby Church and Methodist, we have Christians who are royals.
Sure.
And we need to bring those people up so that they can go into their world and make disciples and bring them on board. Yeah. But if we stand at the end and we throw stones as if we are better than them, we will continue to have this challenge. So for me, I stand with the idea that let's bring the pulpit into the palace. Yes, Sunday I told my church that we need to have a throne, a chair for the chiefs when they come to church. Yes, they are normal people, ordinary people but God has elevated them to a certain level. Let's bring them on board so that they can also feel part of the system and not degrade them. Okay? In certain jurisdictions, they said that school functionaries should not go for communion in some jurisdictions. But who are those school functionaries? When I needed the land to build my chapel, those are the people that I went to. Yeah. It is said that our missionaries, when they came to Kumasi, Ramsaya, for example, it was the traditional priest who offered him accommodation. Also, I'm sure the time will not be there for us to discuss these things. When I needed the land, I go to the traditional people, and we invite them to come, bring their money, bring their glory, and attend my events. Yeah. But when it is time for me to go and visit them and pray for them and give them communion, you say that
Thank you. I think it's okay. You can give him a round of applause. I think because of time, we have to manage our time. It's proper for me now to come to you. So you also express views and opinions, and then I'll come back and we distill some of the views we get from the audience. So I'll do one question here, one question here, one question here, and then we come back in that order. So I see some hands here. Okay, Nobi, give it to Nobi first at the back. Everybody would ask a question. Everybody would ask a question and make a contribution. Yeah, Nobi, let me hear you.
Thank you very much, Obi, and good evening to all. Very, very insightful conversations, and I think it's most relevant now. Disclaimer, I'm a politician. Dr. Engman talks about the issue of identity and national language and the destruction of the black person or the African soul. And he pinches the problem at that point. Yeah. Reverend seems to suggest that morality is a function of societal status. So that whereas 100 Ghana cedis may not tempt the rich man, to the poor man who is hungry, it's a big temptation. Yeah. And he may not be honest or accountable of that situation. I wonder whether it is the same when the minister is signing contracts. And at that level, whether the minister qualifies for a poor man or a rich man. But for me, the issue of individualism, which was highlighted, brings to mind a question. When I read my Bible, particularly the New Testament, it's a corporate culture. Yeah. Very corporate, very communal. I mean, practically, book of James, book of John, 1 John, 2 John, it talks about the practicality of the religion. Yeah. Then I go to Ephesians chapter 4, and it gives me the mandate of the church. That he called some to be apostles, prophets, teachers, evangelists, for the maturing of the saints, for the work of ministry. So that if the church is fulfilling its mandate, we should have mature Christians in banking, in education, in health, in politics.
Yeah.
So if we are not having mature Christians in education, I went to Obakwa State College, 600 of us as cohorts. If at the end of the year, everybody fails, or we have 3% pass rate and the rest have failed, I do not think we can blame the students.
Sure.
There must be something systemically wrong with the school.
With the school.
So what is wrong with the church such that its message on the pulpit is unable to produce mature Christians who can be examples in the marketplace? Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I'll come here. Yes. But a man no mama munsaswe. Yes.
My name is Apostle P.S. Ochrodako,
Okay.
leader of Awake Africa.
Okay.
Patriotism, leadership for a new Africa. I think the church has done very well. The church has contributed in national development. Not only the church, the mosque also. But the challenge we are having is that, unlike in the Arab world and in Europe, the church leaders were able to make laws for the government. But in our case, we have remained at the moral level. So in our institutions and government agencies, it is these appointees who have become overlords of the corruption going on. So imagine a student who has completed KNUST or Legon. That student is not the one going to the place he or she has been employed to practice corruption. It is the person at the top who is overseeing this corruption. So once that child gets the job, by 5-10 years, he's acclimatized to the corruption. And he also graduates to become a corrupt person. I worked with Anglo Gold, and one of my managers was given an example. I'm an engineer also. So he said he went there and people were stealing gold, these things go on. So he warned them that it shouldn't happen. And a foreman is below the engineer, but he was older than him. So he was a young guy who had come, trying to put things in order. So the foreman told him that, hey, if you bring that here, you'll be transferred from this place. So he was shocked that, I am the boss who has been sent here to supervise. 2 weeks time, his boss at the top called him that you have been transferred from the place. So imagine such a person when he's going to the new site. Can he go there with that anti-corruption thing?
No.
So he, at that time, he was a senior manager and was saying that it is at the top. So if you see young people at the corporate world being corrupt, it is because there's a certain boss there who is protecting these people. So where our Islamic leaders and our church leaders have failed is that we are not able to make laws for our legislature. We all know that now corruption is going on. What laws are the Christian Council bringing or the Islamic bodies bringing to Parliament, enforcing the president, enforcing the ministers? When somebody like Osafu Mafu says that we have Christian dominant and corruption is going on, can he say that he's free from corruption? Or he hasn't seen any of his colleagues as ministers being corrupt? So when you get there, you realize that it is the people at the head who are supervising these things to go on, and we the young ones grow to pick it up. And now the worst thing is that the young ones are graduating more than the older ones. So we have to now push for laws. We now have to call for reforms in our institutions. For instance, when you look at calling for a peaceful election.
You keep it simple.
A peaceful election. When you have the political party in power dominating and appointing the people in charge of the election at the police and the electoral commission, automatically the opposition will also create a reaction, and that is where the tension comes. So what I want the church leaders to do is to think of new laws and policies that we will push to the government who claims that they are fighting corruption. Then we can be like the Arab world and the European world. Thank you.
That's a good one. Thank you. I think that the challenge then now will be our lawmaking process as a country. So bills would necessarily have to emanate from the executive to parliament. So now what has changed the dynamics a bit is the concept of private members' bill. So the church can now go through individual MPs and support them to table private members' bills. And I think that's the only way out. Because if the state is not interested in that bill, it might not see the light of day. And unfortunately for all of us, any bill that is sent to Parliament that occasions a cost on the state, that bill will not fly. So it's a very dicey. Let me come here and then pick one here, and then I'll come back. Yeah. Let me pick one. Okay. Mr. Abeku, yes. Give it to Mr. Abeku.
Thank you very much. Also, that was a brilliant piece. Unfortunately, I wasn't here at the beginning, but when I joined in to the end, I thought you did very well. We are in a state of confusion as Christians. Yeah. When we're talking about Christian values and African traditional values, what you didn't, where I faulted you was that you were deep on Christian values, okay, on Islamic values, on Jewish values, but you didn't say much about African traditional values. When we came with Sunday school, youth, adult service and all that, we realized that when Christianity was introduced, they attacked our traditional values. Yeah. Christianity attacked African traditional values. And yet, when Christianity also tells us about Christian values, we saw no difference. Christianity tells us not to steal. Mm-hmm. African traditional values tells us not to steal. Love thy neighbor as thyself. The church will tell you love thy neighbor as thyself. You go home, and your mother cooks and serves all the children in the house. Yeah. Without any philosophy, without any principles. It's just a matter of loving your neighbor as yourself. So there was practically no difference between what Christianity came to condemn and what Christianity introduced. In between the two, what Christianity has failed to do for us is to tell us exactly what is negative about African traditional values and what is positive or different with African or Christian values. Okay. When Thomas Birch Freeman went to Kumasi and met the Nana Kwekudia, the Otumfuo, the first time, talked to him about God. I said, God is this, God is that. Then Otumfuo also said, but what you are saying is no different from what we know. Yeah. So this meeting, Otumfuo said, this meeting is needless. The first meeting, he said, this meeting is needless. That what you are talking about, God, is, we know all that. The only difference maybe was human sacrifice and all that. But even Otumfuo said, but after all, God asked for human sacrifice. So the religious, it's both, all the foreign religions that have been introduced to us left us in a state of confusion. And I believe that is why it's becoming difficult for us as Africans to live what Christians will call Christian values, or Muslims will call Muslim Islamic values, and all those values. Let me also state that I'm a lay preacher of the Methodist Church. Methodist Church, okay. Yes. So sometimes I look at these things and ask myself, after all these years, almost more than 60 years as a Christian, what has Christianity introduced to me that you didn't know before? My ancestors did not know. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's an interesting one. Okay, so we'll do one more round and then we'll come to and I would pick a lady here. Okay, so let me pick this. The man in blue here, and then yes, madam, and then I'll come here. So
Thank you very much.
I'll come back, so everybody would.
My name is Nane Duna II.
But let me issue, please, let's keep the questions simple and straight to the point.
My name is Nane Duna II.
Nana Eduna
II.
The second, okay.
I'm Achamihini of the Okwapim traditional area.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much for appreciating my late overlord in your initial submission. Yes. Osia Dioyo Adudankwa III. We are the original Basel people. We are not Presbyterians. So I want everybody to open their phone and look at the character of Reverend Andreas Rees.
Reverend Andreas
Rees.
Rees, okay.
Read his character. Mother, you mentioned a very important thing. Children copy behavior. When the Basque missionaries came, we didn't understand their language. What we were observing was their character. Very simple. We didn't understand their language. What we were observing was how they behaved. Please, read Andreas Rees's character. And after all, during the First World War, the Scots took over from the Basque missionaries. And the Basque missionaries went away. In the beginning, we poured libation with them. The Germanic Dutch people, very simple, straightforward. Not like the English and the Scots. Please, read about look, the Basque missionaries have opened their archives. I'm doing some research on cocoa. There's 30,000 exhibits. I can forward it to anybody here. Read the character of the people who came. That's what we observed. What was in the Bible. The Bible is a wonderful book. And so are many other religions. What's in there is nice. Love your neighbor as a. What were our people observing? What type of behavior, what characters brought the Bible here? Read about them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. So the microphone to our mommy here.
Thank you very much. My name is Reverend Josephine Kafui Tete.
Okay.
And thank you for the discourse so far. What I want to share is secular education seeks to educate us to acquire knowledge and to excel. When we come to the religious frontiers, it is supposed to awaken in us our divinity. And in scripture, in Genesis, it tells us that we're created in the image and likeness of our Creator. And so we seek to emulate what our Creator is, which is all the divine, beautiful expressions. And if we were all to be living by that, we wouldn't even be discussing this. However, our religious frontiers and leaders and nurturers are not helping us individuals to identify our spiritual identities, which aligns us with our Creator. And so if we were to know that I am the loving presence, I'm the kind presence, I'm the intelligent presence, I'm the supportive presence, we would have been living the moral values of who we are, created in the image and likeness of our Creator. Rather, we go to our religious platforms or places, we are made to feel negative, bad, and all the derogatory words that we use to define ourselves makes us feel unworthy of who we are as the children of the Most High. And so, it is time that the religious frontiers begin to teach us the spirituality that we were made after our Creator. When we are all endowed in this world would begin to be the blissful place because we'll be living as gods and goddesses. And Jesus told us, know ye not that ye are gods? And rather we are telling ourselves we are the poor sinners, we don't matter, we are not worthy of the grace of God. God loves us. And so we must begin to feel ourselves as worthy children of the Most High. And when you feel worthy, you won't do the things that are not unworthy. You would want to live as the image of God.
The image of God.
It says, give the dog a bad name and hang it. We are giving ourselves the bad names. What else do we expect? We will live by it. Yeah. If you tell me you're the beautiful child of God, I would always want to do the beautiful things of God. And it will reflect.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yes. So give the microphone to Daddy here and then I'll come back to the panel. Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Ben Butchie. I went there. There are two members on the panel who know me very well.
Oh, okay.
And I would want to congratulate them, all of you, for a good job done. But I want to look at some other side. And the side I want to look at is that we should not throw our hands out in despair that nothing has happened. Over the years, Christianity and Islam and all the religions have created people. These people might have found themselves in situations where, due to the issue of kakistocracy, might have found themselves in situations where they have faced huge resistance. And if you go to the Bible and talk about Nehemiah, when he started his journey to rebuild, you saw the type of opposition he met. He was one person. And I believe there are people here who might have stood up in certain situations where they would have been transformed in a certain way. They have certain principles and they want to work with those principles. But they have faced serious opposition and therefore they withdraw. And therefore we don't throw hands. I had an opportunity to work in another country and you met a lot of Ghanaians, and for the issue of lack of meritocracy, they have left and providing so much service to other countries, benefiting. So in as much as, yes, we in terms of the teachings and our own whatever, we might have challenges, we also have people in this country who have sacrificed, who want the right things to be done. Okay. But because of the environment in which they find themselves, they render that service rather to other people, for those other people to progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll come to the panel and then I'll come back and we do another round. Dr. Engman, I'll start with you. Anything you've heard from the audience you would want to comment on?
Well, the audience has commented on morality.
Yeah.
I tend to see morality and poverty as two sides of the same coin. And we don't want to make excuses, but and I tend to see also the destroyed African soul. You see, when we talk about slavery and when we talk about colonization, all the picture of the African right now is that it's a giant slave farm. Mm-hmm. All our monies are going into other places, not just services.
Yeah.
The last mention, it's not just services. All our monies are going on a daily and hourly basis. And so we are making ourselves poorer every time. And so the corruption is more likely to breed in those circumstances. And so we need to begin to circulate our monies within ourselves so that when I start my shoe factory, please come and buy my shoes. Don't say that you are going to buy Italian shoes.
Yeah.
Put your money in your brother's business. It will help the morality.
It's true. And it's part of our spirituality as a people to also think about others. Osofo, anything you've heard from the audience you want to comment on?
Uncle Sego, well, he said that he was late, so he didn't hear me spoke about the indigenous aspect. I brought it up, where I even sought to underscore the meaning of Subai, which was so good. And it cuts across, either in Islamic or traditional or Christianity. Subai is something that is cherished everywhere, irrespective of whether you are rich or poor. And that is what, for me, if we have lost it, where the things around us seem to underscore the fact that we've lost something. So I'm calling on all the church, everybody, let's go back into whether traditional or Islamic or Christianity, let's go back into the drawing board. Now the noise had become so much. We are interested in the things around rather than the content. We should go back to the content and make it beautiful.
Yeah. And that's where we build character. So
that is where
here will be
that
character.
Is the thing. Inbuilt.
Character, very important. Ambassador.
Yes, I believe we are looking more at the optics than the essentials. For instance, there's a hadith by Abdullah ibn Umar, which says that we are like a flock, and there's always somebody who is a shepherd. Each level has a certain responsibility. And if each person plays out his role, then society will be at peace. We will be able to relate to each other in a certain situation where there will be no conflict. And we wouldn't lose our identity. I remember Louis Farrakhan, Nation of Islam. He said something which has stuck with me, that Islamize me, but don't Arabize me.
Arabize me.
You see the thing? When you go up north to a place like Damango, the Gonja land, in greeting the chief, you will have to go down.
You lie prostrate?
Yes.
Okay.
An Arab coming from Saudi will not understand why we do that, but that is our culture. And if he doesn't get somebody to teach him that this is our culture, even as Muslims, he will look at it in a very negative way. So there's a clash of cultures. I think it came from the floor. There's a certain clash of culture. But that doesn't decimate the essence of the religion.
The essence of the religion.
You still be a Muslim and you still be a chief. That is it. So we should be careful how we balance the equation.
Dr. Sekou.
Thank you very much. I would also like to comment on the issue of whether it's a lost identity or not, and actually say that I actually disagree.
Okay.
I do not think, in fact, I think that the fact that we identify African values in Christianity or Islam should only make our faith stronger. I don't think that if we see the values in what our ancestors had, and we also see the values in, let's say, a religion that we now follow, it should mean that then the religion didn't bring us anything. Okay. If anything, it cemented what we already knew. And if those values are the same for if they are the same across the board, then why is it difficult for us to live by those values? If really our values as Africans are the same as the values that the Muslims brought or the Christians brought, why is it difficult for us to exhibit those values? Then the issue then is not really perhaps the religion that has been introduced. Perhaps there is something else that we should be talking about. If really all of us had those same values, the Subain, what was valued is honesty, is taking responsibility. And I believe that in every household, in every traditional culture in Ghana, if you went and you mentioned those are things that are valued. Why is it difficult for us to show them forth? And the other aspect of this is, I think that we should bring ourselves to the point where we move forward. We move forward and we say that, okay, so this is where we are. 95% of us or more of us have chosen to follow a certain path.
Yes.
That path brings value to our development. Let us embrace that path. Let us take the good that those paths bring to us. Let's build on those values. If it means going back to look at other things that we may have left behind, let's do that. But I think that we shouldn't bring ourselves to the point where we say that 95% of us have chosen to go this way, but because we lost something along the way, we should go back and drop this then we will not make progress. This is where we are. What we can take out of it to build our nation, let's take it. If we should go back and look at what we have left behind, and yes, we can go back, pick it up, polish it, work on it, and then we can give room to people who are making the sacrifice. And I think another thing is to find others who are working for the development of our nation and encourage one another. And I think if we did that, then perhaps that contribution about how people feel resistance, people feel the pushback, and so they drop everything and go and give their service to some other people who are ready to take it. That conversation will become less. If we all look around and we try to identify one another and encourage one another from time to time, let us go on. It will be well. Let us keep on. Let's not give up. Let's not conform to that system that is corrupting us. But let us together support one another and build our nation together. I think we will make
fantastic
progress.
We've already spent a lot of time, so what I'll do is Charlie, I'll do one more round. But but I'll do one more round. And as I mean, who be a friend of how? So far I've picked only one woman. I'll do Susan here. This gentleman, woman in Saswache, maybe I'll do two here. Aye, this row, oh, sorry. Where's the microphone?
And then there are two ladies.
I'll do two ladies, two here, and then I'll do two here now.
So, thank you.
Keeping it short,
yes, thank you very much. I want to keep it short. My big brother, Dr. Engman, started by opening our eyes to Scripture. I'm a Scripture fellow, so let me just follow his path. I think the problem is that it's about interpretation when it comes to the area of Christianity. We have seen a situation whereby the Old Testament is treated as if we don't need it. The New Testament was written in a space of about 50 years. The Old Testament took about 1,000+ years to write. Now, in terms of reality, which of these two books do you think will address issues? The Old Testament addresses issues as far as reality is concerned. But the New Testament, they were going to heaven. So escapist theology, let's hurry up and leave here and go to heaven. This world is not our home. We are heaven bound. Now, at the end of the day, I'm not saying that I'm a reverend minister. Sure. I'm not saying that heaven is not real. But the issue at stake is this. We have to sit down and take a second look of how we understand the Old Testament. Now, let's look at something. Matthew and Luke talked about Jesus. They started with his genealogy. Matthew goes to Abraham. Luke goes to Adam. What are they trying to do? They are defining who Jesus is. His spirituality, his ethnicity, who he is. He's a Jew. Now we talk about ourselves, and we was talking about what do you call it?
The African
soul, the African soul.
Okay.
We don't know ourselves. We come home, even go back to your ancestry, 4 lines back, you are stuck. So therefore, if there is something that you have to fulfill, how do you fulfill it? We are lost. So basically, we have to take a second look at defining spirituality from its roots. Where are we defining the spirituality? And why I'm looking at the Bible is that it gives us a template. So with the template, we can look at the template, and then we can now look at ourselves and then begin to put our things in order. So the issue of teaching, didaskalos and mathematheos. You see, the didaskalos deals with oral impartation of knowledge. And that is why we are preaching is easy to preach and teaching is easy to teach. But mathematically, how to guide people through process, we have not done that.
Very important.
And that is where we have to look at.
Farmer Daddy,
Thank you very much.
They'll share white, yeah. And then I'll come. Susan,
God bless you so much for this opportunity. It breaks my heart to think about how this nation has turned out to be. Looking at the kind of hope that the founding fathers had at independence. But then, you can see that it's a multiplicity of a clash of cultures. And when different cultures clash, the superior one certainly overcomes the inferior one. Sorry, I don't intend to offend anybody. But I hear some of our people talking about, let's go back to our African whatever. The same African gods were able to sit down and allow the Pra River to be turned into Milo. The same African gods that people sacrifice to. So, let's tell the truth. So, and yet, at the same time, I'm sorry, but somebody was crossing the Pra River, had to do a sacrifice to the Milo the Milo water, which our forefathers worshipped as gods.
Yes.
So, into the truth is what Christ said. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself. If you talk about African identity, what is it? If you talk about European identity, what is it? If you talk about Chinese identity, what is it? Christ says, deny yourself. Why? Because the human being is a fallen being.
Okay.
We fell in the Garden of Eden.
Okay.
We lost that God identity into real identity. It is to go back to God.
To God.
And not to your African traditional whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
That one has failed.
Yeah, that's it.
But before
that's
I conclude, I want to say in Acts chapter 2 verse 42, that is the key. And they continue steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine. That is where the teaching and all the character building is.
Yes.
And in fellowship. And they also continued in bread breaking and in prayers. And so in ending, I say that the church is doing what we are doing because we are not praying.
We are not praying.
The church is not praying. Very frank with you.
Thank you.
We are not praying.
Thank you so much. Auntie Susan, mommy, and then I'll pick. Hey, that's a Wabusa question.
Yeah, there were two ladies.
Wabusa. Mon fama Susan, who is her mommy.
The second man in court.
Which one?
Good evening. You've mentioned my name, so everybody knows my name. I think that one of the things you said, transformed individuals. We are not transformed. Why? Because most of the pulpit preaching is about prosperity. It is the prosperity gospel that goes on and on. They are preaching to us.
But prosperity is not bad. So
No. Wait, let me finish.
Okay.
Prosperity has become a value. Money has become the value. The value of honesty, the value of hard work, the value of loving your neighbor has been
relegated
pushed down
to the background
by prosperity. The people are preaching to us what they believe we want to hear, not what we should hear. You understand? Reverend said why we are beautiful. Yes, we are made in the image of God and we are beautiful. But God does not save us because we are worthy. He saves us because of his divine mercy, his love for us. That's why he saves us. Not good deeds, not because we are in his image or not because we are beautiful. But about his divine mercy, which is unfathomable. You understand? Now you come and you are coming to preach to us. You are preaching to us just prosperity. You come sow a seed, do this, and it's just about making money. Money has become the value. You are not transforming us. You just, some of the preaching that goes on, you think you are in the business school. You understand? And because you are preaching to us what you believe we want to hear, not what we need to save our souls, that is why we are not transformed. And that's why you can have us ticking the boxes as supposed Christians, and yet we are not Christ-like in the lives that we lead.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Come here. I'll pick mommy and then I'll pick daddy. Now, Farmer, daddy, mommy.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kofimbia, I assure you I'll be brief. I'll be brief. First, let me thank Reverend and then all the panelists for that very insightful debate. I think we have looked at it all from one side, and the emphasis has been a lot on religion.
Okay.
But I think that we are also looking at the decadence as far as our society is concerned. And in order to appreciate what really is happening in our system, as he said, we need to look at character. But we say charity begins at home. And unfortunately, we've lost that charity in the home.
That's parenting?
Yes, parenting. We've lost it. We've lost it in the home. And therefore, we are relying now in the schools, on the churches, to do what otherwise should have begun from home. Because in building character, you build from actions. The actions to habits. The habits then turn into character. So your character doesn't form overnight.
Okay.
The Europeans we see there, they've gone through the mill. Their character was formed over a period. And today it has stabilized. What are we doing today? I mean, Reverend talked about kakistocracy. If it were only kakistocracy, maybe we'll leave at it. But now we are building kakistocratic kleptomaniacs. Not that they just don't know how to rule, but they are stealing. Intelligent thieves. So it is important for us to go back and realize that the character formation must start at home. It can't be anywhere. If we all wake up, we rush early, go to work, knowing what is happening to our children, the things we are seeing happening in our second cycle institutions would continue. So it is important for us to bear that in mind.
Yes.
I think I'm coming from a different view.
Okay.
It's like we have been blaming the pulpits. The ministers are preaching the gospel of prosperity.
Prosperity gospel.
No, what I ask myself is, you are a Christian. Is your source of power from the minister or the word? How many of us take the Bible and read to understand? Why should it always be what the minister is saying? Sometimes I sit in the church and I disagree with the ministers. As Christians, you use the Bible. Pray and then let God give you a better understanding of the Bible. And not what the preachers say. Good, the preachers, they guide us. But it's not everything that they say that is true. We should learn to read the Bible and then walk the Bible. What I say is that we are talking about transformation and the rest. We need to transform ourselves. It's not the ministers who transform us. When we read the Bible, we will be transformed. Now, we are all looking at the politicians, they are corrupt. Who made the politician corrupt? Now, somebody comes from, he could not get the seat, the next time.
Yes.
And, the minister, Unika. Unishi. And now you decide to impregnate your wife, or your wife is giving birth, you go to the minister for money, and aren't we pushing the minister to be corrupt? I organized an event in my church quite recently. And I think the next day I went to the office, I was discussing something with my colleague. Mr. Ochale says, hear me. And you're now organizing this event. He says, You see, we should allow the book to transform us. We shouldn't blame people.
Somebody.
I mean, Mama Bible no intimi as a Bible intimi. This kind of corruption and then looking up to ministers and their preaching will stop.
It will stop. Thank
your
you.
Bible, not Bible no.
Thank you.
Colossians 3:23. It's always my mantra.
Wow.
Do as whatever you do as unto the Lord.
Unto the Lord.
Yes.
Unto the Lord. Thank you.
So let's read the Bible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Aha, me bacho Farmer Daddy. Na memra ha na yenwie.
Thank you, members of the panel. It was our colleague, Tete Kweno from Regent University. I think we've identified most of the problem. We've apportioned them to the church, to the whatever. It's time we get a solution. I think we have to get a new consciousness of what we want to achieve from the type of leadership, the type of politician, the type of education, the type of self, the type of home that we want to create, and start it from now. Or else we'll apportion blame, find the fault, the solution is not there. So let's target the solution. From the presidency to wherever. We're talking about Singapore, their president. He laid down the foundation for a change. So that change should come, the new consciousness. That is what I'm seeking for. The blame and the fault over the years cannot be solution. Let's find a solution. Thank you.
Give it to Mame. Now, me bacho had ni saying the work question. Okay, one. I'll pick just two from here. No. Yes, Mami Pacho.
Hello, good evening. My name is Winifred Amugi.
Okay.
I think that we keep talking about Christianity and it's like Christianity has made something and has not made something and something is not working and so we are blaming the Christians. But beloved, ladies and gentlemen, I think that exactly. I think that it is about time we looked at ourselves. What do you think has changed? What caused the change? How do you want to see a change? If you think there is a change and the change is a problem, what do you want to see? You know, a lot of things has happened over the years. And I think that the world of work has also created part of the problem.
Okay.
Because I know a friend. Those days when Adensa, this Medina Accra road, you know, was not very friendly. She has to wake up at 4, and by 4:30, latest 5, she's on the road with the children. She gets to the office, they eat in her office, they sleep a little, 7 o'clock, 8:30, she takes them to work. She takes them to school, and then later. So with time, how are you managing this kind of thing? And she said, Winnie, for me, I think that is all that I have to do.
Okay.
So at a point in time, she has to start. I said, don't stop work. Take a break. Take a leave. Because you need the money to take care of your children.
Yeah.
And so take a break, and then after a while, you can go back. But what I kept her saying, or what I kept saying to her was that, don't forget Christ on your way. Because it gets to a point, they don't even pray. I said, no, boy. As you go on in the car and you are driving, pray as you go. Okay. Teach them how to pray as you go along. And then with time, if you see these children.
Okay.
You know, Christianity is about you. And it's about what you know in the Bible that has made you. Okay. It's not that you can't just get up and say that I'm a Christian.
I'm a Christian.
There should be some value. Something must be seen about you. As soon as you are seen, they know that when you are there, something won't happen because this woman is a Christian.
He's a Christian.
And that is what must happen. But you can't behave like anybody and everybody else and assume that you are a Christian. It can't work like that.
Thank you.
There
I think
must
your
be some
point is well
standard
made.
sets.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll pick the last one here. The production says we should wrap up because of time. So last question and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Abraham Lincoln Medu, and I am happy to be here today because this particular discussion is key. We have accepted that religion, all the four religions, whether Christian, Muslim, or traditional, or whatever religion that you belong to, is not a problem. The basic problem that we have now is that, as Mommy said, we have allowed money to be the center of our value. So the church also prepared a message that is centered around that. And now, this has given birth to what I call PPG, partisan politics of Ghana. So now these politicians have become the brand ambassadors and then the mentors of our children.
Yeah.
So now what do we have? They are preparing our curriculum. I don't know how many of you are currently taking time to look at the textbooks our children are reading now. There are lots of things that they have taken out. Civil education, how as children they need to go and grow and then become. All those things have been taken out. So we need to pay attention to what our kids are learning. Because at the end of the day, if anybody wants to control you or you want to see the future of yourself, look at the children. And that's why every church takes their Sunday school very serious.
Yeah.
Aside that, when it comes to our level, we are also looking at the politicians. So they have a slogan, the end justify the means. So you as an adult, you try to push, as Daddy was saying, to cause a change. It is not coming. You're also looking at your pocket. You need to pay school fees. You need to foot the bills. So you dare also join the wagon. And then you also try to do what they are doing. So as we people, as Daddy said, what is the way forward? I am suggesting that as we here today, we need to pay attention and be part as professions. And don't leave the ruling of this nation to a particular group of people called politicians. Because if we leave it to them, the Europeans, the Chinese, today Chinese are also trying to enforce their values on us, but they are guiding their values in their country. So we as people also need to wake up and guide our values and protect ourselves because Europeans, Americans will all bring their own with the money attached to it, with the string attached to it. We will not look into the values and the syllables that they are bringing. We will implement it. And at the end of the day, it will cost our society.
Thank you.
So the way forward is that the NCCE should wake up.
Very well.
And then make sure the people we have girls who are educated and our syllables must be checked. Thank you very much.
I think your point was well made. We'll come here and then we'll do the wrapping up. Dr. Seku, let me start with you as we wrap up. So let's now distill everything we've heard in your wrapping up comments, please.
Thank you very much. I think I will say that our theme for today is actually perhaps the summary of our discussions. That it is transformed individuals who can transform the nation. And so the bottom line is that we must be transformed. All of us, at least 95% of Ghanaians have a certain religious belief that means that that leads to transformation in its practice. Let us practice those beliefs so that as transformed individuals, we can transform our nation.
Thank you. Ambassador.
Well, unless we have a certain paradigm shift in the way we behave as citizens, and we continue along this road, there isn't too much hope for us. Time is now for us to reassess what we as citizens want to achieve for ourselves, for our people, and then for posterity. Somebody said all the preaching is about prosperity. Nobody talks about posterity. We need to look at it. Because this country, naturally as it is, should be such that we should all be happy. But are we?
We are not.
It's time for us to change. And the change must be positive. Otherwise.
Thank you. Osofo.
I think Paul said it all in Romans that we all need the renewing of mind. And that is all that we say. We need to renew our minds.
We should not conform to the patterns of the world.
But renew our minds.
Dr. Engman.
Okay, so the other side of morality, we should have a certain amount of prosperity. You don't want pregnant women lying on the hospital.
Yes.
So I talk about positive. I talk about positive financial racism, where we circulate our monies amongst ourselves. At the moment, we are just working for everybody else except ourselves, and that is going to impact on our morality.
Thank you so much. So that was Dr. Engman. And I would have to thank you for your patience. We've overrun our time. And for those of you who wanted to contribute and didn't have the opportunity, please forgive me. I had to do that in the interest of time. I would end once again with 3 points. Number one, Paul in his days, at the time he spoke about a crooked and a morally perverse generation in the days of Paul. And he admonished Christians of his time to be children of God without fault in the midst of a crooked and a perverse generation where we shine as lights in the world. So the point was made about when you enter that workplace, you are somehow drafted into the corruption scheme. If you are a Christian, and Jesus asked a very important question, who do men say I am? So when I come to that workplace of yours and I mention your name, what will people say about you? I think it's a question you should ask yourself every morning. Into the era of Nyamesom Wakumemono, it is about what people see. And that's why he says, let your light so shine before men, so they would see and glorify your Father in heaven. So I think it's a takeout we should all take away from here. Who do men say I am? Into Wejumam Hono, you can be a light in the midst of that very crooked world. I think that's my message and my takeout from this conversation. Thank you so much and God bless you. See you again at the next event here and we'll do the communication for you. My name is Philip Osei-Bonsu. Have a great evening.